Alex Drewenskus from WAMU's Capital Soundtrack is a broadcast technician at WAMU 88.5 FM, which is Washington, D.C.'s NPR member station, and currently engineers WAMU's 1A, which is a daily talk show which brings context and insight to stories unfolding across the country and around the world. He previously worked on the Diane Rem show.
Ream show.
Ream show. Let's get this. Yes, please give me these pronunciations right. I got the Diane Ream show, Ken Rudin's Political Junkie, and at the famed electronic music venue U Street Music Hall. So in mid-2016, Alex helped launch WAMU's Capital Soundtrack Project, which is an initiative that showcases local music on WAMU's airwaves in order to connect the station and its listeners to the music of the DC region. Since Capital Soundtrack's introduction, WAMU has played nearly 2,000 songs by artists from the DC region and encourages artists to submit their own music to become a part of the project. I first came across Capital Soundtrack with my band Fellowcraft. We were looking for ways to spread the word about Fellowcraft, and I heard that on 88.5 they played local music, and we came across Capital Soundtrack, and they've played Fellowcraft along with, like it said, several thousand songs. So, listeners, it's with great pleasure that I introduce Alex.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks so much for being here, man.
Extensive introduction. Thank you for that.
Well, I want to give them the background, so now you can tell us more. Now, tell us about the Capital Soundtrack. Let's start there. Capital Soundtrack. Where did that come from? What's the story behind that?
Yeah. So a team of us at WAMU have been working on Capital Soundtrack for about the last 8 months. We launched it about 6 months ago, and essentially what it is a initiative that wants to play as much local music as possible so that we can DC region music as possible, so that we can further associate WAMU, which is a public media station. It's a public radio station. We want to associate our station with the sound of the region. So we don't want WAMU to just be a part of the region. We want it to sound like the region as well.
That's amazing. And I think it does. It's really fast. I can't tell you how many times I've seen on Facebook somebody say, "Oh my God, my song was just on 88.5 FM. It really is. It's wonderful that you're making that connection with the region. Thank you guys, and thank you WAMU for starting this initiative and for doing this.
Well, you're welcome.
Now you said it's an NPR affiliate, or what's the NPR connection to you guys?
So essentially the way NPR works is NPR produces shows, and they distribute those shows to NPR member stations, which are community radio stations, public radio stations throughout the country. So most major cities have an NPR member station in them. The one for the DC area is WAMU 88.5 FM. So if you tune in, each station might have different content. They might have shows that they create, and then they might also play the shows that are the flagship programs of NPR, shows like All Things Considered, Morning Edition, and then there are it's up to stations to determine how much of those programs they want to play and what they want to play when those programs are not playing. So they can make their own content.
Got it. And so how much is you guys here locally, and then how much of that, what's the proportion of like NPR and you guys here at 88.5?
So the majority of our programming is bought from several public media organizations. NPR, American Public Media is another large one that they abbreviate their name to APM. So you may have heard of their stuff, and then several other production companies. We pick a lot of shows for the weekend that we only play an hour of that organization's programming a week, because they only make maybe one show a week, that kind of thing. But during the weekdays, it's the majority of our programming is bought from NPR, and we also have our main programs, the Kojo Namdi Show and 1A, which is another program that I work on.
And so Capital Soundtrack, then, how will people, tell more about what that actually means. They're going to hear little clips of music behind what somebody's saying. What are they going to hear if they hear the Capitol soundtrack specifically?
So each day we allocate 20 songs that are by DC area musicians, and we allow our engineers and hosts to play those songs during our local breaks. So during a show like Morning Edition, you'll hear content made by NPR, and then during the break, which we know comes at certain times, agreed upon times, during that time, we have the ability to play that under our host talking, and say if the host really likes the track or something, they can just fade it up and they can play that track for as long as they want. If it's a 1 minute long break, they might talk for 30 seconds, and then you might hear 30 seconds of a local musician.
Got it. And this is in between the breaks in NPR. This is where you hear the Capitol soundtrack stuff.
Exactly.
And during other times of the day too? Is it throughout the day?
It's throughout the day, so it's 24 hours a day. Even though we go into automation, basically we allow our computer system to play our programmed shows overnight. We have basically programmed it so that it will take snippets of Capitol soundtrack songs, and it will insert them into those breaks as well. So it's all throughout the day. The Kojo Nnamdi show, they use that music as their break music, so they use it as not only a transition, away from their host, but the local host who's talking during that time might also use that music. So it's a lot of different opportunities for people to hear local music, local DC area music.
That is so cool.
Mm-hmm.
And now talk about on 1A. You're working with that show now. What is 1A? Tell us about that.
So 1A is the successor show to the Diane Rehm show. Diane Rehm was a staple of of public radio for almost 4 decades, and she stepped away from the microphone. She's 80 years old. She's been doing this for a really long time, and she's become one of the flagship programs of NPR. She's really widely recognized as one of the greatest female hosts and hosts in general of NPR. So 1A is the successor show to that. Our new host, Joshua Johnson, he's about half her age, half of Diane's age, and
which makes him an incredibly young and handsome gentleman, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
He's great. He came from California, and he just joined us. We just launched our show on January 2nd of this year, and basically we're a 2-hour talk show, and we look at the issues of our time, the culture reporting, arts reporting, politics, news events, all different kinds of things. And 1A essentially stands for the First Amendment. We encourage free speech, free expression, and we want our listeners to engage with us on the show. So we really call out for listeners and their input as much as possible.
And how would they provide their input?
So basically we have Twitter, we have Facebook, we have email. They can call us live. If you want to find us on Twitter, we are at 1A. We're just the number 1, the numeral 1, and the letter A. And it's just the two-letter handle on Twitter. It's pretty rare, and
that's about as easy as it gets.
We're very proud that we got that, actually. And yeah, it's many different resources. You can go to the1a1a.org, and you can also find more information about the show there.
And find it all there. Mm-hmm. That's so cool. Now, Alex, tell us about you and your story with the DC music scene.
So I moved here about 6 years ago, and I went to American University, and I studied audio technology, essentially what is audio engineering. And so I was really interested in recorded music, live music, sound design, and I found that DC actually had a great live music scene, as you know, Brian, as well.
It certainly does.
It's extensive. It's
yeah.
There are so many artists in this area, and it's not just DC. It's Maryland. It's Virginia. It's up the river, down the river. It's an entire community of people that create what the sound of this area is. And yeah, it's that's how I got interested in music. I knew there was this big diversity there.
It mentioned in your bio about U Street Music Hall. Mm-hmm. There's a connection there, or what's the?
Oh yeah. So when I was in school, I was lucky to get a job at U Street Music Hall. And for those who don't know, it's a dance club and concert venue, and it's on U Street, of course, given the name. And it's often voted as one of the greatest sound systems on the entire East Coast. It's a basement venue, and it can hold over 1,000 people in there, and
Holy smokes.
yeah, it's a great venue.
So check out U Street Music Hall. That's amazing. Now, one of my favorite questions that I love to ask is, what's one piece of advice that you would offer?
One piece of advice that I would offer is go seek out live music. And if you don't like live music, go seek out recorded music. Go online. There are plenty of resources throughout the region. If you go to a place like Hometown Sounds, they create a great radio show themselves. Shows like yours, DC Music Rocks. We have the DC Music Download. There's an incredible wealth of music and talent out there. You just have to find it. There are websites that aggregate all the venues in the area, all the events that are going on. So every night there's a possibility to see live music if you'd like.
That's amazing. Check out the scene. Now, for those folks who are interested in finding out more, and I want you to share about the submission process for Capitol Soundtrack.
Right.
So talk about the show and where they find you and how they submit. An artist, if they're listening, would submit music.
Yeah, so if you go to wamu.org/music, you can find all of our playlists. So we post a daily playlist of the songs that were heard that day.
Oh, so you can find it on the website.
Absolutely,
as well.
yes.
Awesome.
And on that page, wamu.org/music, you can also click our Submit a Track link. So if you create music yourself, or even if you've heard a track that you like, you can recommend a song, and you can submit those songs to us, and we'll seek them out. If you provide a link to us, that's even easier, and we'll listen to it. We're looking for instrumental music or instrumental portions of songs, at least 30 seconds in length. And that's so that our hosts and our engineers can fade in and out of it. They can talk over it if they need to. It's tough with music with vocals because the vocals of the music can clash with a host talking over it sometimes.
Sure.
It's not the easiest. So we look for instrumental music or instrumental portions of songs.
So cool. So listeners, it doesn't have to be the artist. Listeners, if you know of an amazing band that you love in town, then share that with WAMU as well. Because they're playing that stuff as well. And are you guys, so I heard the1a.org, if they,
WAMU.org/music. So
/music
that'll send you to our Bandwidth music site. Bandwidth is our music blog. Basically, it's our online music destination, and it covers local and national music news.
And that's bandwidth.fm. That's what I've heard that name before. Okay, so bandwidth.fm. Check that one out. And you guys, social media, I assume you guys are doing that stuff too.
Yes, of course.